I think it's very clear at this point, like Cameron, when you put together the themes this week, Pax Silica, we'll get into that in a second. It is crystal clear now what like we have an end game that this administration is building towards, and it encompasses like all of the key trends right now: AI, logistics, supply chains, critical minerals, international trade, finance, Bitcoin, like you name it, it's like boom, we got a
It's in
label
there.
for it here.
Yep.
It's Pax Silica. Yep. So Cameron, I think if you want to start a seed question here, but this was actually launched in December 2025. And if I had to compare, we've put up a lot of maps. Like at this point, there's so many new organizations we've thrown at the audience over the last few weeks. Board of Peace, um, I mean, the Artemis Coalition. Like, there's so many new bodies coming up for international agreements. You're like, why is this the key one? So if you're looking at it, all the economics that um, this administration would view as forming the new backbone of what's going to be built out from an economic standpoint in the 21st century. This encompasses all of that. And if you look at the countries that have signed
I was gonna
on,
say, yep.
I think something very clear stands out. The countries that are missing are continental European powers. The countries who are in, you've got like basically the UK or Commonwealth. So this is absorbed into the the old British Empire franchise, the Anglo-American partnership that took over for that, and post 1913 order. Um, that's absorbed into this. But you've got the minerals producers or the critical resources producers, Australia. I mean, the U.S. is in there. But then you've also got energy, like Qatar, UAE, etc. Um, you've got the semiconductor production. You got Korea, Japan, um, and then you've got the key bottlenecks here as far as the trade routes are concerned, where we can float ships on water and move all the stuff in the supply chains to build out this new AI world or wherever we're heading. Um, those countries are all in there too. So this is the vision, I think, and it's laid out by Undersecretary Jacob Hellsberg. We'll have his photo on the back end. Um, but he's kind of the point man for putting this all together. Um, so this is what I would call the Bismarckian vision. Maybe we'll call Hellsberg, we'll nickname him Silica Bismarck. Might stick. So we'll see how it
I like
goes.
that.
We still need a Bleichroeder, and my AI model proposed Michael Saylor for that. I'm not going to go there yet.
I
We'll
don't
see
know.
how that one plays
We'll
out.
see.
Yeah, I don't know about that one. I'll challenge him there, but some of these figures haven't emerged quite yet for how this next 10, 20 years is going to play out and evolve. All right, now what was the development this week? So I mentioned Pax Silica was announced. We had the first 8 countries sign on to this in December 2025. So this is 4 months in the making. But last week, this is April 16th, we saw the Philippines sign on. And what they committed in Pax Silica was to set up a 4,000-acre special economic zone on the island of Luzon.
Huge.
And they're
Yep.
basically going to be, yeah, it's a huge chunk of land. And it's basically going to be a special economic zone that handles, you can think about it as logistics here. If you think about Luzon as a territory, I have it pointed out on a map here. But going back to like Spanish Empire times, this thing was a key, let's just say, logistics hub for international trade. You've also got low cost labor there, et cetera. You've also got some mineral resources there. So this is a nice key node to add into the Pax Silica framework, and in my opinion. Now, if you go back one slide, Cameron, I've got the slides really quick. Just want to talk about these. Luzon. When you think of Luzon, I think about General MacArthur's famous line. He got basically booted. He lost at Luzon to the Imperial Japanese, and I want to say 1942, and just famously just tuck tail retreated out of there. But on his way out, he said, "I shall return." And there was this famous photo of him Was it 1945? He's like, yep, he made good on that one. This
Marching
is
back
him,
on.
Douglas MacArthur. Yeah, exactly. At the with the famous recovery there. So what that represented, like Luzon, it's since Spanish Empire days, it's been a key piece of real estate to hold for who ultimately controls the global trade franchise. So to put that piece into this Pax Silica puzzle is a massive win or a massive addition to a coalition that's shaping up. That is the ultimate vision that I think we're building towards. This is a
Agree.
bigger picture trend, in my opinion, than just one midterm election. Something like that, one presidential election. You've got the U.S. military behind it. You've got U.S. capital behind it. You've got those two things picking up partners across the globe into their fold. It's like this thing's a snowball rolling down a mountain that is uh, at this point looks like to me nothing's written in stone yet, but this is a force gathering momentum towards inevitability or unstoppability. Maybe caveat that, maybe something else emerges, some other competing faction. But this is, if we can just follow this framework, I think it's very clearly coming into being as at this point. I could say years and decades, but it's coming together at this point at like a daily, weekly type of basis as the gradually then suddenly kind of framework or escalation in events really starts to take hold, especially in 2026. All right. So the next big development here, Cameron, this like to go back, we'll talk about the map here in a second, but April 13th, this would have been a couple of days before the Philippines Pax Silica announcement. April 13th, the U.S. and Indonesia made a statement of major defense cooperation partnership. So basically, they're going to sign up for military modernization and capacity building, training, conduct joint exercises, operational cooperation, logistics, etc. So if you think about the importance of this is also huge. If you think about Indonesia, it's these massive islands. It's like hundreds of islands in the South Pacific. But most importantly, they've got the one that borders the southwestern side of the Strait of Malacca, key choke point, specifically for the trade routes between the Arabian Peninsula, both coming out of the Suez Canal, and then also out of the Persian Gulf. They meet up, they fork. You really got to have this. If you can't defend the Strait of Malacca, there's other routes through, like you see them labeled here on somebody's Reddit post. 1, 2, 3. There's other routes up into Southeast Asia, China, Japan, Korea, but all of them go through Indonesia, like Indonesian waters. So this joint defense, like Indonesia is now into this U.S. vision, right?
In the
You
orbit.
wouldn't
Yep.
see this like you wouldn't see this announcement, this MDCP otherwise, right? So they're not in Pax Silica yet, but from a defense standpoint, they're in the sphere, and I think like this kind of taps into, we've been guilty of this in the past, but hopefully we haven't been overdoing it. But the deglobalization narrative, I don't know at this point that we can say it's a total deglobalization as opposed to a shakeup, right? The old way, the old order, that thing's being, smashed, foreclosed upon, etc. And in the bankruptcy proceedings, the M&A, the hostile takeover, some new framework is taking over. Um, so at this point, to me, I'd say like, maybe this isn't the collapse of the remnants of the British Empire. Maybe this isn't the collapse of globalization. It's a new era of globalization. There's a new thing that's going to be, unfolding or built out. But I think the key thing, as I kind of foot this to what we've been talking about, like Davos 2026, who was upset. It was the continental Europeans. I think the order here, there's going to be some factions of the old British Empire, continental Europe, who are not going to be a part of the ownership class or the equity share class of this new Pax Silica that's being put together. So the one continental European power that is in Pax Silica, we don't need to talk about this deeply at this point, but Netherlands are in there. And if you think about ASML with the lithography machines that are critical for semiconductor manufacturing,
Yep.
they're in the fold as well. So Netherlands in, but your other Northern European powers, maybe UK's in, but a lot of the basis for E3, old capital tied up there. That's its longevity is tied into maintaining the status quo that's now clearly gone.
Right.
You can kind of see this shaking up in real time, and it's emerging quicker at this point. Like the birth of this thing is like, if it's not here yet, it's the baby's due anytime now. All right. So that's Pax Silica. Cameron, you have any other comments on that? I know Korea, you're talking like the Strait of Malacca. It's a big topic in the headlines locally
That's right.
where you are this week. Um,
Yep. I
Anything on
think
that before we leave to
no,
the next
I
topic?
think you really touched on it. The piece that I wanted to get across to the viewers is really just these trade routes, right? And so there's been a lot of conversation that I've been hearing or seeing online, things like that. And I'm to Matt's point, I'm here in Korea right now visiting some family. Um, when it comes down to it, if there isn't actual control over these trade routes, none of this works out, right? So as we were going to the grocery store, just to share an anecdote here, the Strait of Hormuz still mostly blockaded. Maybe it's open, maybe it's not. Schrodinger's Hormuz. Um, but the grocery stores are rationing the actual grocery bags, right? So you can't you can go buy one grocery bag at a time per transaction, but you can't go in
Wow.
and say I want two today or something like that. So um,
Okay.
again, just the downstream impacts of some of these things, even if you're able to say, okay, we want to have this broad-based partnership, I think having the Indonesian signatories is critical here. Otherwise, there's no way to actually get any of that oil, any of the minerals, etc., over into Southeast Asia without having somebody else, maybe let's say China or somebody, having a say in what goes through.
Yep. No, that's great, great color commentary on the ground. So yeah, the way I view this, all right. So the Iran situation clearly not over yet, but it's in the military's hands right now, as well as there's negotiations back and forth between um, Witkoff, Kushner, JD Vance may be on the Islamabad um, U.S. consortium, TBD. But the way I think about that, like we've got the NBA playoffs going on right now, so I'll make this analogy. So coach and players are focused on winning the individual game, which let's say this Iran situation is that. Um, it's in from the general managers or say the ownership of the team. They're comfortable leaving the coaches and players to close out the game, right? They're up by 20, fourth quarter, play it out, get the win. We know how this one's going to go. Um, and then the general manager, team ownership, front office, etc. They're working on let's say the draft or other bigger picture strategic things being put together. That's how I would kind of frame this broader situation of where we are right now. Um, and then you
Absolutely.
also have the domestic populist situation. Everybody's confused right now. We don't know how to make sense of A or B. The the disinformation and the noise. Like I could just name me a talking head podcaster influencer on the geopolitical front. Like better chance than 50-50 that they're dead wrong on this or don't know. They're just injecting noise in the process. Um, Part of it's or a lot of it is potentially by design, who they actually respond to, work for, etc. But that's just the framing, like to set this where we are right now, and a lot is going to change in the next 3 to 6 months. So if everybody's, catch holding their hair, pulling it out, pants on fire, all that stuff, worried about the midterms, um, I would just say like there's a lot that's going to take place between now and then. So I guess we'll leave that one there.